And that brings protection. That brings safety. Because we can't be safe or protected until we're healed. And, I mean, Brexit's not the only thing that's going wrong on the planet. The invasion of Ukraine, again, Putin has gone mad. How are we going to heal him? How are we going to heal the cadre around him that are forced to lie in order to save their own lives? You know, somebody has to start telling the truth. Solzhenitsyn, the great Russian dissident who I greatly admire, who stood up to Stalin, he said that the most radical thing you can do in a corrupt situation is just tell the truth. You know, that is the healing energy. Apollo was likened to Luch, the Celtic god of light, by the Druids, and Lyon and London are both named after Luch. And Dian Cecht was the physician of the gods in the Druids. So I think Apollo would qualify to be the equivalent to Al-Muhaimim, the protector and guardian. And just a little footnote, I once had a dream when I was living in Britain and teaching as head of religious studies at Poole Grammar School. I was staying with a friend in Lulworth Cove, and at this time in my life I was very creative, and in fact I was inventing the periodic table of the religions and stuff like that, teaching very bright children. Had this amazing dream that I was walking along a grassy bank, and it was like Dartington. For those of you that know Devon, there's a series of stepped banks, and I was down here on the lower one. I could see this person coming down who looked like a pop star. He was incredibly handsome, like a really famous pop star. He was wearing a sort of cheesecloth type shirt, very beautiful Indian type thing, with flowers embroidered on it. And he had an entourage, photographers, you know, like a famous pop star would have. And I thought, God, who's that? Amazing, you know, like, I was trying to recognise him, and he was really attractive, beautiful guy. Anyway, he started coming down at an angle towards me. I was standing there just thinking, you know, and he came towards me, and as he came towards me, I saw his feet weren't touching the ground. And it was one of those moments in a dream where it suddenly becomes like lucid. And I realised this isn't just a pop star, this is a god. This is a sacred, supernatural being. His feet weren't touching the ground. And he looked me in the eyes, and he came up and he went with his finger on my chest, on my heart region, pointed at. And then there followed a sort of flood of telepathic communication. And in that instant, which lasted for an eternity, but was probably only about 10 seconds in the dream time, he said, yeah, I'm Apollo, Thomas. Thanks for recognising me. I'm your god. I'm the god of all philosophers. You've been neglecting me a bit recently, although thanks for working with the muses. And I want you to rebuild all my temples. That's the little job I'm giving you this life, because they're scattered around Europe and the Middle East, and they're all amazing places built in nature. Well, you get them all up and running and stock them with priests and priestesses and philosophers, run them as healing centres. And by the way, in the Middle East they call me Allah. Now all this flooded into me in like 10 seconds, and it was explained to me that the reason they use in Arabic the term Allah and not Apollo is because they dropped the P. If you take P out of Apollo, you get something like Allah. And I was thinking about that. When I woke up, I sort of wrote the dream down. I thought about this, and I thought, actually, that is historically possible. Because the Arab people that worshipped Allah, they loved healing, music, beauty, prophecy. I mean, Muhammad's a prophet. He's a priest of Apollo, whether he knows it or not, right? That's what prophets do. They get downloads from Apollo. And the Arabs were incredibly religious people. So I saw in this flash from this dream that we can heal the European split with the Middle East, that Apollo and Allah are actually the same deity. And he told me that in a dream. And as a Druid, you know, we worship Apollo too. And in fact, Stonehenge is known as the Temple of Apollo by the classical scholars, because they knew the Druids worshipped Apollo. So anyway, therefore, I think Apollo is the protector and the guardian, as is Allah. And you know, I hope people can realise the importance of this. This is like the path to world peace. Right. Okay. Thank you for that. Now it's your turn. You two choose another god between you, and we'll see what name of Allah you can come up with. What I like about this game is it shows the divine synchronicities at work. You know, these different civilizations all come up with different, you know. Okay.
One on top.
Right, that one. Ah, oh, that's appropriate. You're Australian,
Yes.
and you've chosen the Australian god, who's in the card, the rainbow
Oh,
snake.
the Rainbow Serpent, actually.
Yeah,
Yes.
the rainbow serpent, yeah.
Oh,
Who's the king of water.
yes.
Yeah, so you've chosen the one important Aboriginal god.
I've been to where he lives.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
In Catherine Gorge.
All right, that's his like home base.
That's where the Dreamtime story is based, yeah.
That's amazing. Can you tell us what it's like there? Is it like a gorge in a
It's
river valley?
it's enormous gorge that's been created over time, and you can work your way through in boats now, but there's one part in the gorge that's a little smaller and a little darker, and that's where they say the Rainbow Serpent lives. That was the Dreamtime story, but he's a spirit across all of Australia, and he, you know, created the valleys and brought the water to the land. Yeah, very important.
Incredibly. And therefore, in the tarot of the gods, he is the king of water, because obviously, you know, he is like a really important god. And in Australia, because it's quite a dry country, water is incredibly important. And it is to all of us. We all love water because it's the source of life. I'm 60%, 70% water. We humans depend on water for life. And so there's a picture here of two Aboriginals. One is got the didgeridoo. They're making music, celebrating. The rainbow snake is also present in the rainbow because that is his emblem. And it's interesting, the rainbow turns up in the Bible as the scripture for Noah, describing the covenant between man and God, that there will be peace from now on. If only we live according to the laws of Noah, which is don't harm each other and do what's righteous, then the rainbow covenant will remain in place for all mankind. And that's symbolised. Now, these Aboriginal cultures go back to about 60,000 BC. Their Dreamtime story begins at least about then. And that's even a bit before, but around about the time the people here in France were beginning to paint paintings on caves and stuff. Same kind of culture. And water is sacred to all these ancient peoples. In the Celtic world, water represents a goddess. In Chinese religion, it's the dragon who makes the kind of energy lines that pervade the earth. People don't realise this, but the earth, as in the sphere of soil and organic residue on the surface of the earth, is full of water. Rocks are full of water. And the other thing I was sharing recently is Bill Bryden's book on the history of everything explains why water is so watery. It's because it makes millions and millions of connections between different hydrogen and oxygen atoms. In any 1 second, there's like 50 million exchanges of partners going on. So this is the primal networker. I love introducing good people to each other. That's networking, right? And that's why I bother with teaching, because that's all about networking. And that's what water's doing. Water is the principle of cosmic networking between hydrogen and oxygen, which, like opposites, they like to dance with each other. And they like to twirl around and share partners. You know, nobody gets jealous because it's all one water. And so I think the Aborigines intuited all this, and in making the Rainbow Serpent their great deity, they were realising something very profound at a metaphysical level. Their outer culture might have been quite simple, they didn't have cars and trains and planes and stuff. But they had deep knowledge, and still do. And it's wonderful that you've been there, it's amazing. Which province of Australia is that in?
It's in the Northern Territory.
Okay, so
Right,
it's way up north.
Just north of the very centre of Australia.
Right,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Thank you. Yes. And some people say that there's a myth of the Wabalag sisters of Arnhem Land in the Northern Territory, that this is connected with the onset of female menstruation, because that's like the living water of life within each woman, and therefore it's a sort of fertility thing as well. So that's interesting. Anyway, the details are all in my book on the Tarot of Gods. There's also a Rainbow Snake Festival now, an annual music festival in Australia, and a Rainbow Snake Project, which is a series of films documenting a filmmaker's journey to various sacred sites around the entire earth. And so, yeah, hail to the Rainbow Snake, or Rainbow Serpent. Okay, which aspect of God is going to be the most equatable? What do we say? Why don't you see if you find him on there? You guys can look him up in this one, and I'll look in here. Which is the most watery?
So water gives life to the land and sustenance, I guess.
Can you find Basit in there? Basit, the spreader.
Yeah. The reliever.
What do you call him in there?
The reliever.
Okay, let's look that up. That has an intuitive feel of being appropriate. Cheers.
Is there?
So I can't find it. Do you want to find it? Look him up if you get the page number. Okay, there we are. Thank you.
Means the relenting.
In this one. That's another way of talking about it. Can you find the spreader or Basit? I was thinking because water spreads out,
Yeah.
and the rainbow snake sort of appears in shimmering pools and stuff.
He gives life to the land.
Yeah, and also the reliever because water relieves. I mean, it literally sustains us.
Just I'm wondering, what does it mean? I don't know that word.
I see the relenting would be the one who has mercy upon us.
Okay.
When we're due to be punished, but then he relents. Means that he or she commutes your sentence, relents. But I don't think that's the same as this one.
No.
That's slightly different. So I think we'll go with that. The spreader. Yes. Yeah, because the idea behind that name, I think, and I think I'm going to have to do more research on this and get, like, I'll probably have to write a commentary on the 99 names, because this doesn't give enough detail.
And they're
It's-
not
you know.
all aligned.
No, but by spreading life and you know, pleasure in effect. I mean, today we had one of the saints of Epicurus studying. Epicurus wants us to enjoy life, pleasure. A lot of, but again, it's about moderation in things, because too much water is a very bad thing. You flood, you drown, you die. So it's getting the right amount of water. Water on the lungs will kill you. You know, the right amount of water keeps us all alive. So this goes back to the Apollo principle. But anyway, I think that would be my intuition for the one, the spreader, Basit. But I'm going to do some more research on that. Right, okay, now it's your turn to choose one of these
Okay.
that we haven't had.
The one who shapes all forms and appearance.
That was the one we had before, the maker of beauty.
Okay. This is,
Yeah, I think that was that one.
well, almost.
Yeah, that was the one we had. So we'll have a different one.
Okay.
Hmm.
The manifest.
The manifest. Okay, let's hope that is always the same word. We'll be on a wild goose chase. The evident, I would say, that is Zahir, al-Zahir, as-Zahir, the evident. And that's contrasted to al-Batin, which is the hidden. And this is like a concept, interconnected. So al-Zahir, the manifest one, is one of the names of God. So God is what is visible to us. And the Quran is always saying, why? Because people kept saying, where's the proof God even exists? What is this God? Muhammad would just say, look at the stars, look at the sun, look at your wife, look at your children, look at colours, look at music, you know. Like, God is manifest in all these beauties. So as-Zahir, the manifest one, and Allah makes things plain to us, is not scheming or conning us, you know, there's no deception going on. The creation is beautiful, and therefore we should worship the Creator. It's very simple. God is hidden in an endlessness of his infinite power and existence. He's like a light that makes everything visible. So that's another way of looking at God. Most religions agree God is light, and nur in Arabic, and light is what makes manifest. I mean, if you're in a dark room stumbling for a key or something, you know how difficult it is to find it. The minute you put on a candle or a light, it becomes visible. So that is why God is light, because God is trying to enable us all to see what is manifest. You know, and if you've been fortunate enough to have the falling in love experience, it's the look at the beloved is one of life's amazing experiences. You know, you fall in love with their look, because that is God peeking through a human form to you. Yes, so I think that is good. The opposite is al-Batin, which is God is also the hidden. Even if we could see everything in the created world, let's say I had an infinite number of eyes, like a giant owl, and I was looking at every single particle in creation simultaneously, in every plant, tree, planet, like that's a lot of eyes, right? Even then I wouldn't be able to see everything of God's mystery, because God is bigger than that. So God is also hidden. There's things I can't see, but I know they're God. That Allah's infinite. There's a wonderful phrase in the Quran where it says, even if I had all the ink, if all the seas of the world were ink, and all the trees of the world were pens, I still could not write the mysteries of God. And it's the same. Even if I could see everything, I still couldn't see all the beauty of God. So God is also that which is left after the seeing. God is the peace, the sleep, the darkness. When we give up, we can't see everything. And God is then Al-Batin, the hidden one, which is the innermost, the unconscious, the dark, the lunar, the going within, which is beautiful too, because then God speaks to us in riddles and symbols and intuitive knowings, insights. So it's quite clever the way that the names of God operate. They say God is both the manifest but also the hidden. There's a lot of deep stuff, and there's countless commentaries by Sufis on these 99 names. I'm sorry I don't have all the books here, but you know, there's an infinite number of possible explanations for that. And it's also linked to the male and female. We are both the hidden and the... I mean, the female tends to be more the hidden one. She keeps her beauty veiled a bit. And the masculine is more that I'm out there climbing mountains and being a heroic bloke. You know. And that also is the dialectical beauty of the relations between the manifest one and the hidden one. They need each other. Okay, there we are. I'd say that's now. Okay, which God is going to be the manifest? Right. Have a skim through the cards. See if you come up with the immediate one jumps up at you. Okay, I think I've got him.
Oh.
I'm going to go for the first card, the major arcana, number 1, who's the magician. Izanagi, which is now card number 1. And it stands for action, the power to manifest. The magician is the manifester who can pull a rabbit out of a hat or create a universe. And Izanagi is the Shinto top god. He's the creator god for the Japanese people, Izanagi. And when I was doing the research for the book, and I've met Shinto priests, Izanagi is a great deity. He is the magical creator god who at the beginning of time created the earth, humanity and all life. With the help of his partner, loving spouse, Izanami. So they're a couple that needed to work together to create. And they're the greatest of all the kami, or creator deities. His drawing is traditionally quite simple. Shintoism is a nature-based worshipping religion that sees the gods manifest in nature, in the mountains, the trees, the lakes, the rivers. But in the tarot of the gods, he stands for the magician who creates things. The word magic comes from the word magus, Zoroastrian idea of a priest king or a priest magus. But it's the same root as the word to make. Making is magic. And we humans, we are makers. Homo faber, they call us in Latin. We made rocks into tools. Now we can make pens with ink. We can make computers. We're makers. And that quality of making is what God has in the huge sense. We're little versions of that, little godlets. And in Japanese Shinto religion, each of us has a kami, a protective deity, that works through us. Socrates called it a daimon. The Shinto sacred scripture, the Kojiki, tells the story of Izanagi and Izanami. There were 7 generations of divine deities who were self-born. It's the backstory of the universe in the Kojiki, and it's the origin of the Elohim that the Hebrews talk about. So what I've tried to do through my studies is interlink all these different sacred scriptures, and wow, it's the same story being told from a Japanese perspective, or a Hebrew, or a Druid one. And so, you know, the creation story of Izanagi is in this sacred scripture, the Kojiki. And they, the couple walk around a temple, a pillar, in opposite directions, and then they make love for many, many days and nights. And the most ancient Shinto temples in Japan, one of them is located at Awaji on Hyogo Island, which is an inland sea at the very heart of Japan. And that's where their sacred text, the Kojiki, was first written down. So there's a sad story, which is that they made love so furiously that Izanami got burned in the lovemaking and went to the underworld and died. And then Izanagi went down to try and get her, like Orpheus, trying to get, you know, Eurydice back. And eventually, he escapes back to the upper world, and the sun is born from his left eye and the moon from his right eye. You know, so this Kojiki goes back to ancient Japanese shamanism. These people again didn't have gizmos, they didn't have mobile phones, they had their intuitive knowledge. And they knew that there is a good creator God behind everything, who's made everything manifest. And that we humans can mirror that when we make stuff. And the Japanese are brilliant at art, calligraphy, music. But it's simplicity they like. They don't like, you know, overfilling stuff. It's the emptiness, which is where the gods' diaphanous powers come through. And the greatest performers, actors and stuff know that sometimes the silence says more than, you know, great speeches. And a good actor can time their silences. And that's where Izanagi is working, his magic. By the way, the word druid means magician in the Celtic words and languages. So that's why I like the druids, because we are all magicians. We all ought to be doing magic, being creative and creating world of peace, which is why I'm totally against nuclear weapons. And I've got lots of friends in Japan campaigning to end nuclear weapons. I've met Shinto priests that are leading campaigns. They don't just want no more nuclear bombs dropped on Japan. They want no nuclear bombs dropped anywhere ever again. And the mayors of Hiroshima and other Japanese cities, Nagasaki, are leading a campaign to get these nuclear weapons banned from Earth, planet Earth. They shouldn't be on planet Earth. You know, it's fiddling with the chemistry and energy of the sun, which is sacred to all the spiritual teachings. We shouldn't be misusing that and making weapons out of it. I mean, that's really bizarre. So anyway, I'm with Izanagi, the magician, who wants us to continue to manifest life on Earth, wants, you know, children to go on being born and life to be manifest, knowing that we can never manifest everything. No magician can ever do the amount of magic that's needed. Only God can do that. Which is why in Islam and Sufism, the greatest carpet weavers, they always leave a deliberate mistake, because only Allah is perfect. You know. Okay, so I think that's a good marriage, this too, the maker, the manifester. Okay, I think we'll stop there, that's enough. It gives people a flavour, a taste of how these, I think it's interesting how the divine God names correlate to the names of Allah, the Absolute. And this is a call for a universal peace treaty on planet Earth. If we can get all the theistic religions like Islam, Christianity and Judaism who worship this one God, but it has different names, to realise that that's what the pagans and primal people like the Aborigines are saying. There are different gods and goddesses. So why have a war between them? You know, like, let's just realise philosophically we're saying the same thing. And therefore make peace and get rid of nuclear weapons. and replace it by nuclear wisdom, you know, the wisdom of the essence of things. Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Shalom. Oh, before we finish, are there any questions, comments? Did anyone write down any observations that you'd like to raise? Or
I've seen a beautiful thread again,
okay,
but it's not really a question, I suppose.
sure, but
It's
share
just an
what you saw.
observation.
Yeah.
I thought initially when the Elohim were mentioned, for me that was light, eternal light. And so when we uncovered, you know, that God asked for let there be light,
Yes.
and then that then carried into Apollo beautifully, the sun, the, you know, effervescent light of all there is, and then to bring it into this, the moon, the sun and the moon, the relationship between, but also into this manifest, and actually everything that the light touches is part of that world. And I had this thought when you mentioned about the sun and the moon, the eyes. I thought, as much as we see, we also blink, and you know, it's on and off, it's light and dark. Even if we're still here, we're still looking, we're still here. Perception. So yeah, I'm trying to say, it was just a beautiful so then the Rainbow Serpent, that to me is how water, which was also brought in, how water reflects the light and brings that energy of expansive rays into being, into, you know, so that again is divine light. So I just thought it was a beautiful way of, it's basically light, I suppose, and how that's, you know, for me, the essence of divinity and God or goddess or many a name, you know. So I feel, yeah, that was my observation anyway.
No, thank you very much. That's a beautiful thought. I mean, water is made of light.
Absolutely,
in
and the
the
relationship.
sense, in the sense that, you know, although I was a bit critical of Einstein, I mean, he was a genius and he did work out the photon's existence and he got a PhD for it. So, and the photon is the secret of light, which moves both as a wave, which is like water, and as a particle, and it can do either. Well, if that isn't divine, I don't know what is, because gods can do both and, whereas our human logic is either or. For a god, it's like, I'm a god of healing, I'm also the god of music. It's and, right? Yeah, so thank you very much for sharing that. I think it is beautiful, and the more I study theology, that's why I try and encourage people to study theology and religious studies, it is beautiful. Because you begin to see the patterns behind things. And it shouldn't be just left to the scientists, although I love them and they're finding great patterns, because they're leaving out the story of the human imagination, the images of our collective unconscious, of our collective imagination, which is in all the sacred texts. And that would be silly, you know. So I say physics plus metaphysics. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. Okay, shalom.